Hey YouTube, it's JP Dillon. Welcome to part 5, our final video on the 72 Pioneer sx-828. We've done all the crucial repairs on it, including all the volume, the loudness, and the high filter switch that had to be sourced from donors. The amplifier repair, which had I not actually screwed up, we may have not discovered it, and it may have come back to us at a later date because of previous shoddy workmanship. We redid the capacitors in the power supply, the preamp, the phono preamp, pretty much everything in the crucial signal path. There aren't really any capacitors of concern in the tuner, so we're just going to do a very brief alignment on the tuner and then address one other problem that this machine has, and that has to do with the protection relay, which is that guy down there. And the problem with that Omron relay is that the contacts will sometimes get lossy, so we're going to see if we can clean them up and make it work a little bit better. And then just finish cleaning the remaining switches and controls and turn it on and see how well it performs. So the first step to dealing with the relay problem is to get it out of the chassis and pull it up slightly, and then we need to separate the cover from the rest of the body. Shed some light on this. Maybe that'll make it a little bit better. But yeah, the first thing to do is to get the screws loose on the body. And you can replace these two. There are form factors that will fit here. You just got to wire them up. To make it a little bit easier, we'll also take loose the dial pointer terminal strip and kind of move it out of the way. Just get that out of the way so that it's not impeding us from doing what we need to. So this is a little bit loose here. And basically what I'm going to do is, using a dental hook tool, which I'll show you in a moment, get underneath the plastic cover and pull up to unlatch it, and then we'll be able to get this apart. So let me show you the tool. I have two different ones. I have one with a very shallow hook like you see here, and I have one with a very deep hook. And these are just dental picks that I bent over for this purpose, so you can buy a set of dental picks on Amazon or something like that and bend them up how you need them. Just make sure to bend them in small increments with very fine needle nose, otherwise you'll end up just breaking the tips off. So let me show you how this is going to work. And this is going to be interesting trying to balance things while I do this, so bear with me here. But we're going to take the hook portion and get it underneath this lip here. And then just pull out and up until we hear it click like that. And then do the other side. Now, I hold it here and pull up on it while I do the other side so this doesn't snap back down. So I'm going to need two hands for this, but once I get it loose, I'll show you. So once you get both sides of the cover loose, you can pull the cover off like that. And then very carefully take the spring loose because you don't want to lose it. And then we'll pull up on the contact assembly here and get it free from the body. And we'll take a look at our contacts. And as you can see, we got a little bit of pitting there. Those dark spots there, that's pitting. This occurs from leaving the volume up when you turn the machine on or off, because there's energy behind these contacts, and when they close, they will cause pitting. Now, regular oxidation and carbon buildup is normal for age, and you can usually just take care of that with a pencil eraser, but this is pretty deep. So what we're going to do is get some 2000 sandpaper, 2000 grit sandpaper, and we're going to very gently resurface these, and then we're going to do the same for the body here, because the body doesn't look all that great either. So let's get to it. And basically what I'm going to do is just take these contacts, place the little bit of sandpaper that I've cut here, and just go in a circular motion And you don't have to do it very much, but you can see that that cleaned up very well. You don't want to take a bunch of metal off. You just want to prep the surface and make it okay to use again. So both of those look better. And then what we'll do is reassemble our relay partially. We'll just put the contact plate back in, and then we'll reattach our spring, and you bet I'm going to need 2 hands for that. Okay, so what we do with the reassembled relay is we slip our tiny bit of sandpaper in here between the contacts, with the sandy side facing the contacts we didn't resurface, and then I'll press the relay closed gently and just work it. So I'm going to need 2 hands for that, but that should clean up our contacts to the point of usability. Alright, and if you want to, you can trickle a little bit of deoxit D5 down between the contacts. Just a tiny little bit. And then work them into the contacts. And then we'll put the cap back on. Till we hear it snap. And then we'll screw this back down, and our terminal strip for the dial pointer that we had to move aside. And yeah, this is, shaky McShaky face, but got to do this single-handed, because if I put it on the mount will be in my way, and then we won't be able to see anything. Alright, let's bring our terminal strip back around. And let's see if it'll hold still while I'm trying to do this, which it probably won't. Let's make sure we don't pinch our dial pointer lead underneath the screw. That'd be good. Okay, so that's the relay problem. Now, we already cleaned our switches and controls on this board when we had it out, so I'm not going to have the need to do those. But long and story short of it, you would essentially squirt your contact cleaner like Fader Lube or QD into the control, work it a bunch. And I do still use deoxit for switches. I seem to always start a firestorm when I tell people don't use deoxit D5 on pots, but that's another story. Now, the speaker switches on these get particularly touchy with age. There's really not a whole lot to do about it. Eventually, this will just fire a bank of relays, which we'll have to implement at some point. All of them are going to get that way, but for now, cleaning them usually restores them. We'll come up to here to our stereo mono switch. Do the same thing. And then our input selector, of course. Alright, so we've got those switches taken care of. Now let's hook it up and see what kind of radio performance we have. Alright, so she's all hooked up. Let's see how well she behaves now. And let's just go to auxiliary and check briefly. Looks like we have both channels there. That's good. Go back to our radio. And we're broadcasting at 98.5. So let's go ahead and tune that. Looks pretty spot on there. Sure do like the look of those dials. Pioneer and Marantz both had that pretty blue color. So what we'll do now, we'll look at the scope here. This is left and right. Now the bobble we're getting is probably due to the 5G noise. Let's switch over to the right channel from our sound tech and the left channel. We see that we have some separation, but it's not all that great. Now we may be able to correct that some by adjusting the coils on the multiplex. Let me put the tools over here, and let me show you which ones we're going to try to adjust. And you'll just have to ignore the light coming from the dial there, but our 19 kilohertz coil may be able to adjust that in. There we go, that's better. Just nullify that channel there. Do I have this wired up backwards? Let's see here. Go back to auxiliary. So that should be right. That should be left. So right now I should see a right only, but I see a left, so maybe it's just backwards. There we go, just the phasing there. So adjusting our 19 kilohertz pilot phase, we got right and we got left. So the multiplex is working as it should. One thing you can do if you don't want to take the whole shield and cover plate off is we can turn down, well, first I'm going to kill the pilot so it's pure mono, and we're going to turn down the sensitivity until we start to see some noise like that, and then we're going to tune so that the noise is equal on both sides. That's about right, and we see that our center of tuning is just about right. If I move it to the center, it still looks okay here, so we don't need to adjust our detector. I'm going to adjust the trimmers here, beginning with the antenna and then the first and second RF, and we're going to look at the signal meter and see if we can't peak it out. And I always adjust for the middle of the band, so overall it gives good performance. You can adjust for a specific spot. You can see here that this is way out. A lot of adjustment there. So let's turn our signal down a little bit more. And let's go to the first RF. That was about at its peak already. And the second RF, a little bit more peak out of it. But that antenna trimmer was way out, and I'm terminating with a 300 ohm, so if we have the correct terminations, maybe somebody was messing with it. But we've got clear monaural signal down to about 3 microvolts, so that's pretty good. I think the factory spec on this was 2.8 or 2.5 or something like that, so the tuner's still working really well on this. So there's really not a whole lot else to do on this. This one's actually in fairly nice shape. I'm just tuning through the noise here, and the signal definitely affects the multiplex. But it's interesting how it wants to be reversed. Like if I adjust the phasing, it's very happy with the opposite channel. Of course, that was at the extreme. That's at the extreme of the range right there. And it was good until it warmed up. So what we can try to do, now that we've got it right at about the middle of the range, is there's a secondary control here, which is our separation, which is down in there. I don't think we'll be able to see it. I think there's going to be way too much. See that little trim pot down in there? We can adjust that. And let's see, I have an RF tool in here that's plastic. It's just plastic with a metal tip there at the end. And what we're going to try to do is adjust this so that it's a little bit better. Yeah, tweaky tweaky. Much better. Yeah, that potentiometer is the key right there. Okie dokie. And now that it's warmed up, it's much happier. So this thing's good. Let's get the covers back on, and then we'll deal with some cosmetic flaws. Primarily is that it's hard to tell, but the side panels here are really faded. I mean, badly faded. So we'll see if we can oil those up and make it look a little bit nicer. Alright, so here she is with the cover back on. We have a couple of things to address, and that is that super faded wood trim there. That one's not great either. The top's a little sad looking. Got a little chooch there. One back here, but I think at the very least we can color these in. You can see the coloring difference there between the case and the wood thing. And what I'm going to use is this gel stain from General Finishes, which is pretty close to the stock color. And I'm just going to open it up and we're just going to rub it in. And hopefully that will take up the coloring difference and make it look a little bit nicer. But I think it should be good after that. So we're just going to pry this open. I need to get more of this stuff because I'm about out of it. It's also starting to gel because it is a gel stain. Let's just pry some of the old gunk out of here. You can see how it's kind of chunky. Alright, so the way that we're going to work this is I'm going to just fold up a shop towel here, shake it a bit so that we get our stain on here. Wipe off the excess, and then we're going to go to town on it and just rub it in. And like I said, this is pretty close to factory stain that they used color-wise, so it's going to look real nice. And it usually doesn't require any prep work. You can sand it if you want to, but it usually finds its way in without having to do that. And then we'll just do the other side here. Just rub it in really good. Then we'll wipe off the excess. Now, why am I not doing the entire case? Well, I could, but don't really need to because that's not where the faults lie. I want it to match as closely as possible. I'm not trying to be heroic here. And after we let it sit for about 30 seconds or so, I'm going to rub off the excess. Put the cap back on there. So we'll just let it sit for a tiny little bit. And after about a minute or so, fast forward a bit, we'll come and wipe all the excess off. And you can see that it does a good job of matching the colors. And that way the sides don't stand out so much. Because before they were looking kind of ugly. This way it at least doesn't stand out and they kind of blend in. Now for the rest of it, I'm just going to use some Scott's Liquid Gold. So let me grab that. You can pretty much get this stuff at any cleaning supply place. This is they have an aerosol version which may be easier, but this just happens to be a liquid version. So we're going to, again, get a shop towel and just pour a little tiny bit onto the shop towel. Don't need much. And then we're just going to hand rub it into the top. And this, to a degree, will cover some scratches too. It's not perfect. But let me show you the difference so far. You can obviously see where I've applied it and where I haven't. But it's good care for the wood. It definitely helps with wear and tear and oxidation. And we'll just do this side over here. And then I'll just take the back side and I'll wipe off the excess. So now that looks a lot nicer. Definitely an improvement. And the Scott's Liquid Gold definitely helps with the grain popping out a little bit better. And transitioning. Side looks okay. You can definitely see there's lots of wear there. Same with the other side. There's wear. We got pretty close with that stain match. So we got all that good to go. It's looking a lot nicer now. So let's see how much power it puts out, and then we can close this one out. Alright, so this may be hard to set up so that we can see everything. Yeah, it's hard to see. We'll see if we can make this work. Stand by. And I'm basically just going to hook my voltmeter across the load. So right now we have 4/10 of a volt. And we're basically going to turn it up until we start to see clipping and then back it off and measure our power output as we do that. Alright, so we got some clipping there. Turn down the signal a smidge until that just goes away. So that's 20 volts RMS. We still got a little tiny bit of clip here on the very top. Alright, so that's 20.4 volts. So basically to achieve this, achieve what we're putting out, to measure it, we square the output voltage and divide by the resistive load. So if we square 20, we get 400, divided by 8, we get 50. So we have 50 watts per channel, which is, I believe, what this is supposed to put out, or maybe it was 55. I don't remember. I think it was 50. I think the 727 was 35 and the 828 was 50. Let's take a quick glance at the specs and see what it's really supposed to be. Okay, so according to Pioneer, this is supposed to put out 54 watts per channel with 0.5% distortion or less. So I could probably get 0.5 distortion if we crank it up just a wee bit more. It could also be limited by the little transformer I'm plugged into, so we can try plugging it into directly to the wall rather than the bench supply and see if that changes. Yeah, so plugged into the wall, we get 21 volts RMS, which is our 55 watts per channel. So I probably am feeding it 123 volts versus 120, but there you go. So it is putting out spec, and the voltage selector is at 120 on the back, so it's doing what it's supposed to do. So that's good. So this turned out really nice. I'm really happy with how this one is. Good tuner, phono stage, preamp, everything's been taken care of. This is going to make somebody really happy. And yes, it will be for sale locally. I don't really want to ship it. So if you're in the SoCal area, keep your eye out on eBay and Facebook Marketplace, etc., etc., and you'll see this thing eventually. But for now, I'm going to enjoy it a little bit and burn it in for a couple days and see if it's happy. So anyways, hope you guys enjoy this journey, and it's nice to see a piece of vintage gear that keeps on living rather than hitting the scrap pile. So anyways, thanks for watching, and more stuff to come.